as long as we know what problem we are trying to solve today, let's not try to predict what problems will be 5 years from now and have this system solve those problems. Because when those problems come, most likely they'll be different from what we can envision today.
Welcome to the LabVIEW experiment. I am your host, Sam Taggart from SAS Workshops. In my 15 years of working with and training developers, I've had the opportunity to conduct a lot of experiments. Over here, we believe in embracing failure as the essential learning experience that it is. And what better way to learn than from other people's mistakes? In this podcast, I talk to industry experts, colleagues, and friends about their failures and how they have turned them into future successes. I'm here today with Ravi Beniwal of Binary Palette fame. He's been a sponsor of GDevCon the past several years. And actually, this is not your first time on the podcast. We've had you on before, but then we lost the episode. So there's been one or two episodes that were lost over the years, and that was one of the first ones. But the other reason you might know Ravi is the LabVIEW Task Manager, which actually I remember back when I started, that was like a big deal and like people were really excited about it. I don't know that I've heard a lot about it lately, but do you want to just give a brief overview of what that is for those who don't know?
Sure. So back in 2003, 4, 5 timeframe, I developed a large application for 3D acoustic holography, and it started getting really big. But at that time, we didn't have too many tools on testing it in flight, so to say. So I developed this LabVIEW Task Manager to work just like the Windows Task Manager that we were used to seeing, where you can click on any VI, open its front panel, block diagram, stop it, or look at its properties. And that really helped me with my development. And then when I saw a lot of code sharing on Lava, I put that up on Lava for other people to comment on. And that picked up some steam. And a few people started contributing to that. Darren was one of them. And he obviously added some of the secret stuff that I didn't know at the time. So I guess within the first few months, it got a lot of updates. Its capabilities improved. So it was really good at its time. But after that, that was right around the time when Active Framework came out and a whole bunch of classes. So the overall complexity of the kind of applications people were building kept on increasing. And I couldn't maintain the task manager to cope up with those. So in 2017, I, along with 2 other developers, had another push at it, added some more features, added some filtering, so that you can focus on set of files or VIs to make it easier to cope with the large scope of the project. But it's been a challenge trying to keep up with it, just like any open source project ends up being. It goes on the back burner, it stays on your to-do for a while, and slowly falls back.
So I'm curious, do you still use it? Do you find it useful, or you don't even really use it anymore?
Every now and then I do end up pulling it out, and it is helpful where it is.
I feel like sometimes open source projects like that are timely, like they're really good at a particular period in time, and that just don't age well. Like as an example, I wrote something when I first started. One of the big problems I had was I was in a corporate environment. I only had one machine. I couldn't do virtual machines. So I had multiple versions of LabVIEW installed, and I had a tool for when you double click on it, it figured out what version to open it in.
Yeah.
And that was really useful. And then I discovered virtual machines once I got out of corporate America, and I've never used it since, and I've never touched it. And
Yeah.
so, but there are other tools I feel like that have aged pretty well in the sense that I've written some GCLI tools for doing CI/CD stuff, and those seem to have aged well. Although
Right.
at some point they might age out because LabVIEW CLI gets better over the time, and now there's this VIPM CLI, and so maybe I don't need GCLI anymore. So Like for example, one of the tools that was applying VIPC files using GCLI.
Yeah.
Now the VIPM API lets you do that very easily, and so it's like, okay, do I need to like? I'm probably never going to use that tool again. So
Right. Now, another thing that I felt around this is when I was developing this, at that time, I was also in my early years of learning LabVIEW. So many things I missed because I wasn't used to doing everything, right? Many things I missed, LabVIEW Task Manager helped me find those and
mhm.
it added value. As you get more experience, you intuitively just think of all the pitfalls that you're going to encounter and you effortlessly program those so you don't fall into them. So the value add of these tools falls for you.
Yep.
But the people who are starting today, this is still a good tool for them to use so that they realize that, hey, you can look at whether a VI is re-entrant or not right from this interface, right?
Yeah.
You can see how many instances of this clone are launched. You can open any one of them. Like the kind of things that the DQMH tester gives you, where you can open the block diagram of any actor that's running in the background. You could pretty much do that with the LabVIEW Task Manager. And it had that capability back in 2011.
Wow. That's
So, yeah.
yeah. So I put in a presentation for NI Connect, and it was about the benefits of doing open source. And I have this theory that I think everybody should have. Well, I don't know everybody, but like if you want to be a serious LabVIEW developer and you want to get better, I think a
Mhm.
very good way to do it is to have an open source project that you work on. Because I think one of the issues I see is people who are in corporate environments, they're always running on an older version of LabVIEW. They're stuck solving the same problem. They're not really learning and growing necessarily.
Yep.
But go doing a new project, it's a huge learning and growing opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. It's a playground. I want to learn about CI/CD. My current work doesn't do that. Hey, I can go over here and in my playground, my open source project, I can learn about that. I can learn about TDD. I can practice unit testing. And
Yep.
it's kind of like a low risk way to do that.
That and also, I guess, that sets the right tone for learning because when you are setting up an open source project and putting it on GitHub like that, sharing with people, you are making yourself vulnerable.
Mhm.
You are putting it out there that, hey, I'm experimenting with this. You can see where I'm at today, poke holes in it. Other people don't see that as a threat because they're like, hey, this guy already showed all his cards. And they are open to giving you suggestions on how to improve it. So that gives a very good setup for a collaborative environment where everybody pitches in, everybody learns. Like if I had not put that task manager up on Lava at the time, I probably would not have learned a whole bunch of things from dead end,
Yeah.
right? A lot of properties that I had no idea about, different instances for different LabVIEW projects. So all those things I learned because I put out how much I knew, and then others were willing to help me with that. So that worked out really well.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to get feedback too, because I feel like sometimes in corporate America that's missing
Yeah.
because maybe you are the sole LabVIEW developer, or
Hmm.
like you're the only one who works on this particular project, and there's nobody to bounce ideas off of. There's nobody to say, oh, there's an easier way to do this. So you
Yeah.
just keep doing it the hard way because you know it works. And
Yeah.
yeah, okay, that's great, but like you're making your life harder. So
Right.
yeah. And also I've had this idea of a lot of times people in these isolated environments, they do the best they can. They keep repeating the same patterns, but a lot of it is they don't know what good looks like because they haven't actually seen good code. And
Right.
so that's like, in that respect, like having your own repository, okay, like you have rely on other people to be like, no, that's not the way to do it this way, whatever. But also, like, if you're contributing to somebody else's open source project, you
Yeah.
can see how they do things. And that gives you an idea of like, oh, I would have done it this long way, but here's an easier way. And
Yeah.
yeah, because it's hard to change if you don't realize there's a problem with what you're doing, right? So a lot of bad code I think gets written because somebody inherited some bad code. They didn't know what they were doing. They looked at
Yeah.
it, it worked, and then they need to do another one of those things. And they're like, well, let's just copy this because it works. And
Right.
copying it and like they run into problems, but they kind of duct tape their way around it and they figure out a way that works, the brute force approach. And
Yeah.
like, okay, that was painful, but like it works. And so there's no incentive to necessarily learn to do things the better way. And like I come into places and like I look at them and they think they're being really efficient. And I'm like, wow, that took you a week. That would take me like an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, so
But at the same time, many times it also teaches you humility, because sometimes you look at a problem and you're like, oh yeah, I've done that a few times. Let me add my 2 cents to it. You go in there almost to give your perspective.
mhm,
And when you go there and see what has already been done,
mhm.
you learn things that you had no idea about.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you realize that there's so much you need to learn. And instead of leading in just to speak, you learn to listen a lot more.
Yeah. Well, one thing I often, as a consultant, I come in and I look at something and I'm like, they're doing it the hard way. And I'm like,
Yeah.
gee, why would you do it that way? I'm like pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, not always, sometimes I'm right and like there's a much easier way. And sometimes it's like, it has to be that hard because of these reasons. And I learn about all the constraints that they're under and like that. So
Yeah.
like one of the things that I've learned when I'm designing a system as a whole
Mhm.
is to try to eliminate a lot of the edge cases and stuff just by the design. So for example, I worked on a circuit board tester and it tested 10 types of circuit boards.
Mhm.
9 of them were exactly the same. One was completely different and required all these special cases and stuff.
Right.
And if I were to do that now, I would be like, we're gonna have 2 testers. Even though
Yeah.
like, yeah, they same hardware, same everything, but like that one board threw so many wrenches in the software,
Yeah.
so many special cases. It's just so many places for bugs to hide and things. It's like, no, let's write 2 pieces of software.
Because you, in essence, you did make two testers not realizing it.
But they
And they were
were
intertwined, and you were using half of it at one time and the other half at one time. Separate those, and again, all those edge cases, everything becomes so much simpler.
yeah, if you just like if you can at the requirements like if you can implement stuff at the requirements level or at the process level, like our
Mhm.
process just we just don't do this thing.
Right.
Like the exceptions we manage them separately from the software. It makes life so much easier, I
Yeah.
think.
And that's where, I guess, being in some cases, I find the area that we are in, what we do in developing test and measurement systems, we are lucky that we get to interact most of the times directly with the people who are going to use the system. Very rarely do we build a system, just ship it out, and we never see the people who are using it. Generally, we get to see our users in action. We get to feel their pain. What is it that that person is trying to do? So more than just a long requirements document that we read that and we form an image in our head on what needs to be done, rather than that, you can go directly to the person who needs to use your system, learn about their pain points, what they need to do, and then we can build something that is specifically designed for them.
Yeah, so much of that I think comes down, I think it's called like the XY problem or something where like somebody comes and they're like, I want to do X,
Mhm.
right? But they what they really want to do is Y. They just assume that X is the way to get there.
Right.
It's like you see it on the forum. Somebody's like, "Well, how in scripting do I do X, Y, Z?" And you're like, "Well, what are you trying to accomplish?" And then they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm trying to do this other thing." It's like, "Well, there's an easier way."
Yeah.
Yeah. So getting, and I think somebody mentioned once that like the thing I think consultants can bring to the equation
Mhm.
is they're an outside person, but also they bring clarity. A lot of
Yeah.
it is clarifying like what is the actual problem that we're trying to solve here.
Yeah.
And are we going down a rabbit hole? Like, are we a solution in search of a problem, or are we starting at the problem and then defining the solution?
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned something called design for ephemerality earlier. We were talking
Yes.
the recording. So I'm very curious what that means.
So, like we were talking about the LabVIEW Task Manager, right? That is a good example where, so many times, whether we are in a architect summit or GDevCon or any of our highly technical settings where we love to discuss all the frameworks and design guidelines and uh, all the edge cases and how to solve them. We get so hung up on all those tools and techniques because we think we are building systems that are going to last forever. And the idea is they will not. No matter how good a system is, it has a life. It is born, it's maintained over time, serves its purpose. At some time, it will either stop being relevant or be replaced by better, faster, different tools. So we need to embrace that going into designing our systems, knowing that our systems have a certain lifetime, because that puts a different spin on everything. That helps us not become too rigid, too like by the book on what techniques we are using to build it. As long as we know what problem we are trying to solve today, let's not try to predict what problems will be 5 years from now and have this system solve those problems, because when those problems come, most likely they'll be different from what we can envision today. And when they are here, there probably will be different tools trying to solve those problems. So that kind of limits the scope of what we should really uh, care for building today. That simplifies the problem itself. And most of all, that takes some of our own ego out of it. So I guess as I had some of these thoughts all these years, and that did factor into how I build software. But I came across this amazing article literally called "Designing for Ephemerality" by a person called Brajeshwar Onam, and I couldn't have said any of this better than he did. So I would highly recommend reading that article. So one thing that I really liked that he said was build with pride, but release with humility. And I guess all of us developers do have a lot of pride in what we do. The idea that we are able to think of, and we get stuck with that okay, this is the best idea ever, and the framework that I built is the best framework ever, and I'm going to push this into everything that comes my way because again, it's the best one. It's going to outlive anything else. And the moment you stop and think about it, there have been so many such frameworks over the years, so many amazing tools from, large corporations like Amazon, Google. There were so many tools. Winamp, from back in the day,
Yeah.
right? And all of them served their purpose for a few years, a few decades, and you don't see them anymore. So all the time that people spent fighting over that, color of that last button, well, that thing that doesn't exist anymore. So
Yeah.
doing just enough, as long as the thing you're building does a good job for the problem at hand today and for the near future, we'll change it when we encounter something new, or we will replace it when problems change, or somebody else will change it because, like software, we also have a time limit. We
Yeah.
are not going to be here forever. The things we build will not be here forever. So, yeah, take pride in what you do. All the knowledge you've accumulated over the years, great, take that into any problem that you are going to solve. But don't limit the scope of what needs to be done by only what you know or only what you think the problem is today or going to be 100 years from now. So,
Well, that's interesting. So I've done some interviews. I think Kyle Griffin Arate mentioned it that like one of the big things about quote unquote agile,
mhm.
whatever you want to make of that, is that there's a level of it where it's all about learning. It's about knowing that we don't know everything. We don't know the entire problem space, and it's about getting things out there to try them out and see what we can learn about, and then keep going. And I think of it as like programs evolve over time.
Yep.
done, right? Like it starts out, it solves this problem, and then it's like, oh, well, wouldn't it be nice if, and then it evolves a little bit more, and then, oh, the market shifted a little bit, now we need to do this, and it constantly changing.
Yeah.
Think of it as like you're never really done,
Right.
right? Because even nowadays, even if you solve the problem perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
right now, the problems change it, the markets change, but also like just simple security. You have some dependency that now has a vulnerability. Now you got to go update it. That requires you to change things.
Yep.
I don't think you can get away from that right now. And the other thing I have with that like never done thing is there's this idea of project management versus product management.
Mm-hmm.
Project management is this very rigid, like we're going to do this thing and it's going to be done on this date at this time for this amount of money, and it's this is
Yeah.
and exactly the scope, and it's very rigid and fixed. Whereas the product is more like, hey, we have this thing, and hopefully, like the focus actually, like even product management, I in the scope of this discussion, I don't like it as much because it's you're focusing on the product. You should really solution management, I think, would be a better way to put it. Particularly like in test and measure, we talk about solutions. We have this solution. They go, and I pushes all the partner solutions, right?
Yeah.
Your battery tester,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a tester and it's a piece of hardware, but it's actually a solution to somebody needs to test a battery. And
Mm-hmm.
the best way to do it is with this E-load and this power supply and this. But maybe tomorrow, like you said, maybe it's something different. Maybe there's some new
Yeah.
technology comes along that makes that all better.
Yeah.
You know,
And the idea about you brought up project management and how we are so stiff around timelines and budget and what can we accomplish within this amount of money. Uh, I've that kind of drove me away from the big corporate culture where everything is dollar driven, because at some point that project will end. But as a developer, you know that you have not completed the work, or maybe something could be done better for the user who's going to use it. He did not get everything he needed to do the job. Although the corporation to corporation, business to business, well, this project is done. And that brings me to, I guess, my feeling when I talk about empathy in tech. I develop my systems for the end user, the guy, whether it be an engineer in a lab, a technician on the shop floor, who will finally push the buttons on the screen that I am developing. So if I start by looking at what problem it is that I'm trying to solve, because that person probably gets some kind of requirement to build something, to test something, right, from somewhere, and all he has is these requirements, his day, and some tools. Now, if those tools become almost transparent, right, where he knows what he needs to do, he can effortlessly just glide through it, finish it, that puts a smile on his face. I mean, that's what we should be aiming for, right? But when we take that and dumb it down to just a few bullet points in some requirements document, and if I'm just building that sitting in my office and I just ship it out, and I still, let's say I'm going all agile because we're designing for ephemerality, right? We're just looking at what needs to be built today. While building it, I see some gaps in the requirements. I know that this was not made clear at the time. The user will really need this part when using it. But the business side of it says, well, this project is done. We talked about these features. These are done. Pencils down. But as a developer, I know that there are things that the user either absolutely needs to do his job, in which case the business will come back asking for it, or if the user got these extra things, it will make his life so much easier. So going independent, doing, I guess, running my own business did give me that flexibility where I can tell myself when I need to put my pencils down, and that is when everything I think the person needed is done. If I stop getting paid like 75% through it, I don't mind, because overall, this is enriching my life. I'm not going to bed with a few things running in my head. I'm like, I wish I'd done that. I wish I could do that. So that kind of separates the business aspect of it and the human aspect of it. When I know somebody needs something, I can do it, and nobody can stop me from doing it. So, I mean, that's the power that,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that brings up a whole bunch of interesting points. But like the one thing I wanted to hit on is, you mentioned, I feel like a good tool, whether it's software or anything, is something that disappears into the background,
Yeah.
right? It lets you, your folks, so folk, like for example, like right now we're recording this thing on Zoom. Zoom
Yeah.
is a great tool because it just fades into the background. I don't have to worry about settings or whatever. I set it
Yeah.
up once and I just use it and we're just talking. Like the operating system on your computer, if it does it well, you're not like constantly fighting it. It just like gets out of the way.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, I feel like a lot of corporate jobs in particular, you end up fighting the machine
Yeah.
and people get used to it and they kind of assume that things have to be hard. And
Yeah.
it drives me nuts when I see that because people are just like, oh yeah, I do it this way and it's like 10 steps and you're like, that could just be one step. Like, why does it have to be 10 steps? Well, that's
Yeah.
just the way it is, and we just do it that way. And it's disappeared into the background just because they're so used to the toil that they're just like, okay, we'll do all these 20 steps and it's not a big deal. And it's like, and I had a conversation with somebody once where they were like, there was some issue and they're like, well, the developer just has to remember to do these 10 steps. And it
Yeah.
was 10 steps and like you had to do them all. And if you missed one, it didn't work and everything threw up. And I was like, yeah, I was like, or we could just design the system where the person doesn't have to remember the 10
Yeah.
steps. It's one
Yeah.
button. It's like, wouldn't that be a better, I think it's like, I forget what the term was, but it's like engineering safety, right? Where you engineer like the safety into it, where it's like impossible to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's like if I get a call from one of my clients and says, well, I did this and something happened, I must have done something wrong. And my first answer to
yeah,
that
the
is,
developer did something wrong because they let you do it out of
yeah.
order.
And I tell them up front, I'm like, you know what? If my system let you do something wrong, that's my fault, not yours.
Exactly. Yes.
What did I miss? Like, what button did I let you click that should not have been clicked at
Label, it
that
should be
time?
invisible or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that builds that instant trust too, right? Because my clients know that I'm not there just to take their money, give them something, and then anytime anything goes wrong, I say, well, no, that's your fault. I'll fix that, but you have to pay me for that. If I did something wrong, well, I should have done that correct the first time, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I think there's some empathy there and there's like understanding and understanding beyond just like the list of requirements, but like why they exist. And again, it's like that clarity of taking the step back and seeing the bigger picture of all the problems and
yeah,
anticipating where they can get into trouble.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole lot that goes into that.
Yeah. And I guess we were talking about big corporations, and I feel like the larger IT landscape and large software corporations, we almost are dehumanizing people. Like users just end up being stick figures on some use case diagrams, and developers just end up being employee IDs hired by the hundreds and fired by the hundreds. In all of that, there are so many layers, so much distance between the people doing it and the people who actually need it, that we talk about empathy, but there's no direct link where empathy can be experienced, right? You don't know who you would empathize with because all you see is these stick figures. This is Bob. Bob needs this. And you are just designing a piece of code that adds that button that lets the stick figure do something.
So I guess a question I've been toiling with a while is like, is that an inevitable part of growth? Like once that
Yeah.
there's, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell who said something about like, if you study primates, there's like an ideal group size
Mm-hmm.
that like after you get above that size, it's really hard to manage because you lose that empathy because you don't have those personal connections. And I think it was like, I don't know, like 120 people or maybe it was 40. I don't remember what the number was, but there's some number that like when groups grow past that size, you lose that. And I think like as a company, I can see it. Like you have a small company with like 10 people,
Yeah.
everybody, they're all on a first name basis.
Yeah.
And as it gets larger, at some point, 200 people, 300 people, whatever the number is, you lose that and you just become a number and a person. And you're no longer a person, you're a role or something. And I think even like users of your software, it also, like the
Yeah.
nice thing about a lot of the things that I do,
Yeah.
I'm doing it for a lab or something, and there's like one machine, there's a handful of users, that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The LabVIEW space, you get people who are like, I'm building this tester and we're going to make hundreds of them across different things, and I feel like they lose that connection with the end users sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. At scale, you do have. There is no way to have that one-to-one connection between the developers and users. And as you said, that comes with, as you grow, it's going to happen. You can't fix that. But that's where I guess it's important to know where you are, what you want out of your life, what you value more. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what pushed you and I to build the kind of businesses we are building versus, other larger corporations. If I want to earn lots more money and want to build a bigger corporations, could I do it? Sure. I have the skills to do it. I just choose to, take the path that I'm taking because personally it's more fulfilling to me.
Yeah, this is something that I struggle with because I would like to grow my business a
Mhm.
little bit. Like I like working with other people, and I
Mhm.
find that like, a lot of what I end up doing is working by myself. So it'd be really nice to have some coworkers to work with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
But also like I don't want to become a manager in some ways too, right? And I want to keep my hands dirty and do the things because I like doing the things.
Hmm.
I noticed you've been hiring lately,
Yes.
past year or two. Can you talk to that and what that experience has been like?
Sure. So I have, as I said, I wanted to stay a smaller business so I can derive more personal value out of it. And I limited the scope of things I could do all these years uh, just because I did not want to take on more work that would make me hire more people and then become, you know, before I know it, I am that, building that corporation that I was trying to avoid in the first place. And again, personal reasons, right? But as I grew, as I saw a lot of projects, how they panned out and their scope, and also met a lot of people, both the ones who need things done and uh, people coming out of school today, coming out of college, they need internships, they need some experience so that they can go into those job interviews that do need experience before they start, right? So that catch 22. So I played with that idea. I'm like, maybe I don't need to turn down any projects just because I personally don't have time to work on all of them. But I still want empathy to be that driving factor behind anything that I'm doing. And the sweet spot that I found was that if I work with people who are trying to get there, who are, let's say, trying to learn LabVIEW, right? Once they put in a certain number of hours doing their base learning themselves, or maybe I just point them into resources that they can go and learn. After that, I can share small pieces of code from what I'm doing, give it to them that's isolated enough where even if they either entirely fail on delivering on that or are not able to fail at the level that I need to, I can still manage, I can fill the gaps, I can still deliver to my customers. But that gives them the real life experience of building and growing and learning and contributing to something meaningful, building their own resume, right? So I guess that goes towards my teaching them to fish, but I also lead them to where they will find the most fish because I can see them from where I am,
Mhm.
and that gives them that instant feeling of success and confidence so that they can keep going, right? So and because I value the freedom that my business or my setup has given me, I want other people to experience that too. So that's why anybody that I work with, my first thing to clarify is that We will never be an employer-employee. Uh, Nothing wrong with that relation. It works for lots of corporations, lots of businesses. But personally, for me, it's that we will work together. You do some, I'll do some. You have your freedom, and I have mine. And that
Yeah.
has worked really well because it takes a lot of unnecessary management from this whole process.
Yeah, I really enjoy the teaching, coaching, mentoring thing. And I think there's two things to it. One is I find writing code fun and joyful and like that little kid experimenting with the chemistry set or something, or that first time you turn on you write a piece of code and an LED turns on, you get that like
Yeah,
joy. And I want people to experience that because I feel like a lot of corporate jobs, you lose that. Like you said, you become disconnected. You're just like, I'm just a cog in the wheel and I'm doing my little piece over here, but I don't see the whole big picture and
right.
it kind of feels pointless. So there's a lot of that. And then there's also, you mentioned like, I really like building people's capabilities because I like living vicariously through others. So
Yeah,
I used to teach like rock climbing and I taught several people rock climbing. And like when they came in, they knew nothing. And I would like introduce them to it. We took them out. And next thing you know, like a few years later, they're like climbing El Cap or something. And it's like this great big thing. And it's like,
yeah,
and to me, there's some satisfaction knowing like I had some small piece in that.
yeah.
Like, I mean, I didn't go do it. I can't take full credit for it, but I can take credit for like providing at least the inspiration or a few skills that they needed in order to do that and starting them on that path.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes only a little more than just saying, go, you can do it. If you give them some opportunities around it,
Mhm.
and they can actually have some hands-on thing that they, get to learn on and experiment with, and hopefully get paid for.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that builds that confidence, and they can see a future. They can, feel it, taste it.
Yeah, my big challenge I'm facing now, I think, is trying to build a business model around me doing that because if I'm successful, if I teach them how to go be great LabVIEW programmers,
Hmm.
don't necessarily need me anymore at the end of the day, right? Like they learned, they got their thing, and then they're like, okay, bye, see you. And so how do I continue to take advantage of that relationship? Or then I'm in the process of either trying to maintain that and trying to figure out how to add value once they already know what they're doing, or I'm facing this constant of like people are constantly turning over and I have to go find new people to mentor constantly. So,
Yep.
oh, interesting
And
problem.
again, that's where we'll find out how this works out. I'll report back at some future date.
Yeah, no, I'm very curious. I'm always
Yeah.
paying attention. I see all the job posts and so I mentioned rock climbing. That's like one of my hobbies, but you are very into motorcycle riding. I remember when we did the first GDevCon, you were GDevCon N.A. You were a sponsor, but you couldn't make it because you were on some big motorcycle trip or something.
Yeah. So I've always loved cars and motorcycles. I used to ride when I was in India as well. But here, after working for all these years, it was, I don't know if you'd call that my midlife crisis or the time when you realize that, what, time to live a little now. So got my Harleys and have a few friends that I ride with. And I really like long distance riding because it's a totally different kind of ball game than just picking up your bike, going around town. And so in summertime with Michigan weather, I only get about 6 months of riding. Other 6 months, it's snow outside and the bike inside.
Mhm.
But those 6 months, wherever I'm going to any clients, I'll pick my bike up before touching the car keys. But that's just to because I like riding. But what I really like is a long distance riding. So with my group of friends that I have, every year we plan at least one long ride, at least like 2 3 week long ride. So I have gone from Detroit to Halifax, Nova Scotia, and just this last year we did Detroit to uh, LA. We did all of Route 66 and back. And year before that we went from Canada to Mexico in about 34 hours.
Whoa, that's
Right.
crazy.
So these
That's
are
a long way on a motorcycle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So on the first day, we were on the road riding with some breaks for about 23 and a half hours out
So,
of
so
that 24 hours.
like the iron butt thing, don't you have to do like what is it,
Yes.
1,000 miles? You get the
Yes, so I do have that Iron Bird certification. It's a
okay.
very rigorous process, and that's what I like about this style of writing, I guess, because that there are many parallels between this and what we do at work, because this takes very meticulous planning. For a ride that we are going to do in May or June any year, we start planning like November or December before that. So we
Wow.
plan for like 6, 7 months, because with such long rides and with several people, if you're doing it alone, if your bike breaks down, if something happens, you can change your plans. But if there are like 6, 7, 8 people taking 2, 3 weeks out of their year, they took vacation from work, arranged for their kids to be picked up, dropped off, whatever. In that situation, you cannot have anything go wrong, right? If one person bike goes down, what do you leave him behind? Does everybody stay behind? Do you change the entire course? So there are a lot of risks in that, so it takes very meticulous planning throughout. Like, we know where we are going to stay, which gas stations will fill up gas on most of the time, months before we head out, right? What kind of safety gear we need, bikes all tuned, ready to go. So that whole upkeep of your tools, yourself, your physical fitness to, sit on a motorcycle for 23 hours a day,
Mhm.
right? All that goes into it. But then when it's time for the actual execution, that's where you need to be humble, because all that planning that you did, where you told yourself all the lies that this is how it's going to go, it never does. Something will always come up that you could not plan for, right? And as a team, how do you work with others with sometimes conflicting priorities on what they want from this trip? How do you work with them to, find some resolution to whatever that is going on? Maybe some stop didn't work out as you expected, maybe somebody's bike did break down, and now you're 2 hours behind in a day that you were going to ride 12 hours. Now that changed everything. So you learn a lot about yourself, about others under stress, because riding for an hour or two is fun, not challenging generally. But when you're riding, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, every day for the 20th day, everybody gets a bit cranky, because you're still getting, calls from home, from your clients. And there have been times where I'm riding and I'm getting called from my client saying, well, this is really urgent and we got stuck with this one thing. Can you help? And from my Bluetooth, you know, helmet, I'm calling them back and saying, well, we are stopping in about hour and a half for lunch. I can stop there and help you there, right? So as you add more and more days to this, managing this whole thing becomes more and more complex. The pressure is building. You still want to be friends with each other because you want to ride with them again, right? So under all that pressure and with all the frustrations, and again, you went out riding because you enjoy it. So you still want to tell yourself that, hey, I'm enjoying this. So how do you enjoy under pressure? Because enjoying and pressure, that kind of the two opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Functioning is one thing, that you are under pressure and you can still function, but you're enjoying at the same time. That teaches you a few things about yourself and you grow.
Yeah, that reminds me of a lot of my rock climbing and mountaineering trips and stuff, and trying to maintain those relationships. And yeah, under stress,
Yeah.
it's one thing to just get through the day and be safe, but also like yeah. Also, though, I've found that stress creates good bonds, like
Mhm.
shared stress, shared experiences like that. Um, it reminds me, there's a quote, I think it's Eisenhower, that like plans are useless, but the planning process is priceless, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like it's the actual like written document. is not the important part. The important part is getting all that out in the open. And like you mentioned the dynamics, there's the stress part, but also the other part I found is goals. Like
Mhm.
if I go on a climbing trip with someone and my goal is just to go have a good time and their goal is we make it to the top no matter what,
Yeah.
that's a bad trip, right?
Yes.
Those two things are going to conflict at some point.
Yeah.
And so making sure everybody's on the same page and kind of has a similar attitude. And I don't know if you find this for your motorcycle trips, but I find a friend of mine once said that like finding a good climbing partner is harder than finding a spouse. I don't know.
That may very well be true.
Because for climbing, it's like you got to find somebody whose goals are the same, whose abilities are the same, whose interests are the same. And then on top of all that, you mentioned like they got to have a compatible schedule. You got to have be able to find the time off that lines up. And yeah,
Yeah, and especially when you are out on these extreme adventures, sometimes your life literally depends on the other. You
yeah,
might be in a situation where you are alive because these people were with you.
yeah. Yeah, climbing for sure that happens every time. So
Yeah.
cool. There is one question I like to ask before we go, and that is, can you tell me about an experiment that you tried and what you learned from it?
Oh, that's a tough one because I love experimenting and I make lots of mistakes all the time. And I guess my biggest experiment, I would say, is lots of little experiments early on, thinking that I knew everything about the problem I was trying to solve. Right? Because now we have the luxury of all these years of doing work where it's not a single experiment that I would say that taught me everything I needed to learn, but all those times when maybe my ego took the best of me and it for the time being it impeded my growth because I was locked into that, okay, I know everything about this project, about this thing that I'm doing, and this is the best solution, and then you see it fail, and that reminds you that no, you did not know everything, not about the problem, not about the tools you were using, not about yourself, right? Because as you grow, the more of your faults that you accept because they happened, the more humble you keep on getting. And I guess that's where I am in my life now, where I have lots of confidence, but it's not confidence out of arrogance that I know everything there is to know, but it's confidence that throw anything at me, I'll fail a few times, but I'll make it work. I've failed enough times, I've succeeded enough times, and I've leaned on other people for times when I didn't know something, or accept that others uh, generally are, they may be better at some things than me. In many cases they are definitely better than me, and again it's not even about whether they are better than me or I'm better than them. That shouldn't even be a question because we are trying to solve a problem here. Let's join hands, whoever comes up with the best idea, let's discuss that, take our individual egos aside and work on it and move on. So it's
Yeah.
that I would say was my biggest experiment, life itself, over past many years since I started observing, life as a bystander. That what is this game that's going on? What am I doing? What gets us to behave the way we do at times, and the things you learn from it, the friends you make, the friends you lose. So
Yeah. No, that's a good answer. I'm curious. So, you mentioned the word ego and humility quite a bit. Have
yes,
you? There's a book I like. Maybe you've read it. Ego is the Enemy. Does that sound like a?
it does ring a bell.
Yeah.
But
That's yeah. For anybody listening, I recommend it. It's a very good book. But it talks a lot about that, about how your ego causes you a lot of problems, it blinds you to certain things. And so
Yeah.
again, I think it's you mentioned like looking at the game that's being played. It's that idea of it's a consultant's idea, but it's like taking a step back and
Hmm.
trying to look at the bigger picture of what's going on. Uh, but also something you said there, the like why we do things, and sometimes I think the why is sometimes a fool's errand in the sense that we think human beings are rational actors and we think of ourselves as rational actors,
Yeah.
and often we're not. If you take a really good close look at it,
Yeah.
by emotions and other things, and there's a lot to look at and examine there
Yeah,
sometimes.
because many times, like we all think that we are rational. What I'm saying is logical because, hey, I put all this logic into coming up with this idea, these words that I'm about to say now, and everybody should take that as, gospel. But so is everybody else. Everybody is thinking their approach is rational. And thing is, if they don't all match exactly, that means they're all kind of, you know, everybody has their own ideas. And us calling it the only logical solution to it, that's where I see ego's biggest play. And
But also, too, there's this like meta thing of we think that there's like one reality, but in
Mhm.
ways like, for example, like, I hold something up and I'm like, what color is this? And I say red.
Yeah,
If you're colorblind, it might not look red, right?
exactly. Yeah,
And which one of us is true? Well, the truth is not that it's red, it's that it emits a certain wavelength of light,
right.
right? And we perceive that. So like
Yeah,
what is the reality? Is it red? Is it gray? Is it and
yeah,
so yeah, there's a whole level of like there's this base reality of like, gravity is 9.8 meters per second squared or whatever. You jump off a building, you're gonna fall and die. But
yeah,
like there's like our perception of reality too is a completely different thing. And we confuse those two things sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah. So it's very interesting. There's a yeah, that could be a whole podcast on its own. So I think we'll leave that there. But
yeah,
anyway, it's been great talking to you, Ravi. People, if they want to meet up with you, you're going to be at GDevCon N.A this year, right? And you're also
yeah.
going to one in Asia, which it was just announced recently. I think that's in April, right?
It's in April. Yeah, so it was just announced a few months ago. Still working on the details yet. All we know is that it's going to be in Bangalore, India, and April 9th and 10th. Venue is being finalized now. So if you have any interesting ideas that anybody that you want to present there, that'll be a great opportunity. This is the first time it's happening in Asia, so let's support that. And for all my American friends, you including Sam, and I know Nancy just posted about that this morning. Anybody who wants to visit India, this would be a great time to do that and support this great
Huh.
event.
So Nancy announced she's going. Is that it?
Oh, she just said that it's been on her bucket list. So I'm like, now it's the time to check that item off the list.
No, that's definitely I mean, it's getting hard though, right? Because now there's one in Latin America, there's one in Australia, New Zealand, and there's one in India. So
Yeah,
it was hard enough when there were just two,
yeah,
and now it's like five. So I've got to prioritize every year which ones I go to, but
yeah,
I hope to make it to all of them at some point because I like traveling, I like visiting new places. So
yep. And it's a business expense. That
yes.
helps.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ravi. And I don't think I'll see you in India, maybe, but
Yeah,
I'll definitely see you in Chicago. So,
absolutely.
all right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sam.
That's it for today's episode of the LabVIEW Experiment. Thanks for listening. If you have any comments or questions, head over to thelabviewexperiment.com and drop me a note. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the LV Experiment.